Hello, my name is Theo, and on behalf of FP Markets, we thank you very much for watching. In this new series, I will cover the latest market updates regarding cryptocurrency, but before we dive right in, please like and subscribe as it means a lot to us. Also, please feel free to visit our Traders Hub. It's home to a wide range, variety of educational material, such as videos, articles, and a lot more, including our traders tools. Here you'll be able to find things such as an economic calendar, a forex calculator, and more included and provided by Trading Central for all account holders. So before we begin, thank you very much once again for watching. Now, the topic at hand this week is the Bitcoin halving. Now, the Bitcoin halving is an event that takes place every 4 years or every 210,000 blocks that have been mined on the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, the halving itself is expected to begin between, pardon me, April 19th and April 20th, 2024. Now, before we begin into the aspects of the importance of the halving, just as again, one quick recap with regards to what actually mining a Bitcoin block is. This includes solving a very complicated mathematical equation using computer power. Whoever or whichever entity has solved the mathematical equation is the person or entity that is able to add this block onto the Bitcoin blockchain and in return is rewarded. The reward itself is Bitcoin. The first Bitcoin halving that took place, miners had 50 Bitcoin as a reward, which then dropped to 25 Bitcoin. This time round in April of 2024, there is going to be a drop from 6.25 Bitcoin per block mined to 3.125 Bitcoin as the reward for every block mined. Bear in mind, there is only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be mined, that will ever exist. And the final Bitcoin that will be mined will be in the year 2140. So there's still plenty of time until then. This is why the Bitcoin halving is an important aspect which respects the philosophy of the protocol of Bitcoin network. Halving impacts the miners mostly as when the reward itself is halved, this of course is also the incentive that is also halved of the miners. So the main thing that's important is the price of Bitcoin to remain high for the reward to make itself worth the actual expense. As of course, bear in mind with each Bitcoin halving that takes place, the hash rate also increases, which therefore means the computer power increases, which means the energy costs to run the network increases as well. So the price of Bitcoin itself would have to remain high enough for the miners to have it be worth it for them. Bear in mind, since the last halving, Bitcoin has risen approximately 800%. So this has been a significant rise. Now, what I wanted to point out today, as you can see on the screen, is each time that the Bitcoin halving has occurred, there has been an increase in price in its life cycle since the last 12 years. With the first one starting, of course, in November of 2012. Now, the price approximately in November of 2012 per Bitcoin was around $11 to $13. This peaked at around $1,100-ish. This was the first halving. In the second halving, as we can see here, in July of 2016, one Bitcoin was worth approximately $600, something like this. And at its peak was, of course, the famous bull run, which we saw Bitcoin end up at around $17,000, $18,000, $20,000. This was absolutely significant as this was the first major bull run that started gaining the attention of the mainstream media and the majority of the public that didn't know much about Bitcoin. Now, the third halving itself occurred in May of 2020, 4 years ago, and the price of Bitcoin then was around $9,700-ish, something like this. And then, of course, this peaked at around $67,000. So it's important to note that even though it's not a guarantee that every single Bitcoin halving, there tends to be a price in the actual asset itself, you have to understand the fundamentals of supply and demand. If the supply is less, yet the demand is increasing, this usually leads to an increase in the price of the asset. In Bitcoin's case, because there's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be able to exist, this also is an important factor to consider in its role in the economy right now. Now, bearing in mind, Bitcoin has been brought a lot more into the legacy financial system right now. As you can see, there is activity when you see sell-offs, for example, occur in the traditional markets. You also see the sell-off happen in Bitcoin as well. So it can't be argued completely that it's an overall hedge, although it's of course a very important asset which has seen a significant rise in value over the time that one has held it. So depending on when you've held it, it doesn't really matter unless you bought last month. Whoever has bought Bitcoin in the past, up until a few days ago, a few weeks ago, would have been in profit. Now, the thing to consider when it comes to the Bitcoin halving itself is that it brings volatility. One thing to consider is with every single Bitcoin halving that has taken place, if we were to extend our chart a little bit more, you can see that once the halving occurs, there is a period where not much occurs, not much happens, and then there has been a price increase. Now, bear in mind the blocks are very, very small for the candles. However, when you see the actual price aspects of things here being at around $11, $12, and then coming up to this line here and seeing it's at around 1,000, this is a significant increase. The only difference is now, because Bitcoin has just not stopped since then, these look very, very small movements in comparison to where we are now. In 2012, on the first halving, took around 96 days to reach a new all-time high for Bitcoin. In 2000, pardon me. In 2016, it took approximately 280 to 300 days-ish to reach a new all-time high for Bitcoin. In 2020, it took around 200, 210 days to reach an all-time high for Bitcoin. Of course, in May 2020, we also had to consider the fact that the pandemic was occurring and everything was having a difficult time at this point. However, what the point is that each Bitcoin halving, there tends to be a bit of a cycle where it's cooled down, but then it starts to be rising again. Now, one could also consider the Bitcoin halving this time round, what will happen to the price. Now, of course, nobody knows what's going to happen, as it's all speculation anyway. However, what we can see is where the Bitcoin halving will occur itself. It's at a level where there is potential for drops, where there has been demand lower down with strong support. However, there's still plenty of time for Bitcoin to continue cooling down, being able to price in, because one thing that can be considered is the last few weeks where Bitcoin started to reach an all-time high. It did, of course, coincide with gold reaching all-time high as well. So one could argue that it's due to the economic situation or the geopolitical events that are taking place. However, this also could be considered as a pricing in for the Bitcoin halving. Now, we will have to see what's going to happen. It's a very exciting time. If anybody has any questions, anything else that they would like to discuss, then of course be able to be in touch with us if there is anything that anybody requires. Once again, thank you very, very much for watching today. If there is anything else that anybody needs, please feel free to contact us at fbmarkets.com. And once again, thank you very much for watching and all the best with your trading. Bye.